Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Sometimes All It Takes to See Is to Look. This will be Part 13, Chapter 13, entitled All Day and All Might. All Might, Shouta announced in a tone that left no room for argument. He had just finished his class and had a free period. Coincidentally, so did All Might. The blonde turned in his chair from where he was sitting in the teacher's lounge to see who it was, though the deadpan voice should have given him away. "Ah, Aizawa, do you need something?" The man in his skinny form placed a large hand on his chin. "I'm not missing a lesson, am I?" Shouta just raises his eyebrows. Has that happened before? He knows that All Might definitely doesn't have his teaching license, but Nezu, for whatever reason, thought he'd be a good teacher. He could at least remember when he asked to teach. Shouta shakes himself out of that thought. While it is concerning, it's not the reason he is seeking the man out today. Shouta needs to get to the bottom of this thing with All Might. He just doesn't understand it. The strange familiarity between Midoriya and All Might feels like the last piece of a ginormous puzzle he has been staring at for weeks. Except he can't find where the puzzle piece fits. Who are they to each other besides teacher and student? No. Shouta gives a brief shake of his head. This is about Midoriya. All Might instantly straightens in his chair. Is he all right? Did something happen? Shouta rolled his eyes at the blatant favoritism. How he didn't notice something sooner is beyond confusing. Nevertheless, he put up a placating hand. Nothing's wrong. Calm down. All Might relaxed. Then, remember our talk on Monday. All Might glances towards the door, like he wants to make an escape. Yes? Then you must remember, I said I would figure out what's going on between you and Midoriya. He didn't tell me anything, so here I am, figuring it out. All Might purses his lips in an unusual show of displeasure. I believe I said it didn't concern you. Shouta levels his eyes into a glare. He is so close to making sure that Midoriya is safe, both mentally and physically, that he will not have this mysterious connection with All Might risk that. All Might, you will tell me what's going on. That kid has gone through enough trouble in his life without the number one hero giving him more. I don't care if it's harmless. Just tell me, so I can make sure he's safe. All Might dropped the displeased look and shifted uncomfortably, a soft furrow to his brows. His darkened eyes flashed. Is young Midoriya all right? Concern laced his tone. Shouta could work with this. It may seem sleazy or manipulative to use a hero's concern against him, but Shouta just wanted answers. In his line of hero work, more often than not, more questionable methods were used to bring justice. No, Shouta says flatly. All Might coughs, and a few specks of blood splatter on his lips. But he will be, and it would help if I knew what could potentially trouble him more. Shouta recognized that their secret could simply be that they have some prior relationship. That much is obvious, at least. But if it happens to be something troublesome, well, Shouta has come this far, helping a student. He's not about to stop. Plus, he has the gut feeling that this is more than that it's something bigger, something dangerous. All Might shifts in his chair. Even sitting, the man is tall, yet he somehow gives off a much meeker presence in his small form. Though Shouta supposes that may be the point. The blonde glances around the room warily, like he's looking for intruders, but the room is empty besides the two of them. What was wrong? All Might questions warily. Does it have to do with why young Bakugo is no longer in 1A? Shouta purses his lips. The teachers were supposed to have been told some of the predicament, at least at baseline what Bakugo's restrictions are, especially since some of them involve interactions with Midoriya and other students. Yes, he says simply. At least partially. All Might clasps his hands in front of his face, looking somewhat expectant. Shouta isn't going to give him anything more, however. Hopefully the silence will convince him to talk. I suppose, All Might started, before glancing around the room again. Let's go somewhere a bit more private. Shouta raises an eyebrow, but says nothing as he follows All Might to his private office. Once the door is shut, locked, and they are sat across from each other, All Might begins. He tells Shouta the story of two brothers, then of a quirkless boy who was blessed with a quirk, then became a hero, then passed that same quirk down to another young quirkless boy. And doesn't that make so much sense? It is completely unheard of for anyone to suddenly manifest a quirk in their teens, but regardless of how nice it is to feel that final puzzle piece click into place, Shouta is still pissed. He can feel anger rolling in the pit of his stomach because what the hell was All Might thinking? He rubs a hand over his temple. So you're telling me you thought it was a good idea to give a quirkless teenager a powerful quirk so that he can continue your legacy to fight an all-powerful enemy? All Might was this close to having groomed a child into a suicide mission. Oh, goodness no, All Might says, waving his hands erratically. I thought All for One was dead when I passed the quirk on, and will do everything I can to prevent young Midoriya from having to fight him alone. That's not better, per se, but less bad. Fine, but that doesn't erase the fact that you decided to give a quirkless child a quirk that you don't even know much about, without telling anyone. All Might rubs his head sheepishly. It's a dangerous secret, Aizawa. You must understand that anyone I tell is in danger just because they know. So you decided a kid was the best person to have a secret that big, without any support system. Shouta has to force his fist to unclench. I assume his mother doesn't know. All Might shook his head. Like I said, it's dangerous to know. Speaking of, All Might leaned closer marginally. You mustn't tell anyone. I trust you because of your position, Aizawa, but please keep it a secret. Shouta rolled his eyes. Obviously he wouldn't tell anyone. So who all knows, then? Let's see. All Might held up a bony hand to count. Nezu, that damn rat, Gran Torino, Tsukauchi, and Night-Eye. Shouta felt his eye twitch. So it's okay for you to tell all those people, but not for Midoriya to. All Might look startled by that. Well, Tsukauchi is a trusted friend of mine, and Gran Torino was my teacher when I went to UA. But you didn't let Midoriya tell his teacher. All Might startled again. But you know now. Shouta really had to resist the urge to punch the blonde idiot in the face. I mean before. Had I known, I could have taught him better. Maybe he wouldn't have broken all those bones. Hell, he's just got it under control after being taught by someone else. Did you even teach him at all? We didn't have a lot of time to practice with it since I gave it to him the day of the entrance exam. Shouta dropped his face into his palms. His patience was waning with this conversation. Are you kidding me? He glared pointedly at All Might. Let me see if I got this right. So not only did you give him a dangerous bone-breaking quirk, All Might opens his mouth to speak, but Shouta puts a hand up to stop him. No, let me finish. So not only did you give him the quirk on the day of the entrance exam, but you expected him to use it with no practice to get into UA. You didn't tell him the risks before he accepted, trained him without his guardian's knowledge or consent, then forbade him from telling anyone else. Does that sound right? All Might looks guiltily down at his shoes. I didn't expect it to break his bones. Shouta crosses his arms. The point still stands. All Might shuffled in his seat, hunching down in a way that was strange for such a tall and usually imposing figure. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds bad. It is bad, All Might. Shouta stands, putting his hands on his hips intimidatingly. He is a child. You can't force or expect him to carry this burden on his shoulders, much less alone. How did you even meet? I saved him from a villain, but my time was running out. So when he tried to ask me a question, I didn't have time to answer and left. He grabbed onto my leg, causing me to drop the villain, and I landed us on a roof. Later, that same villain attacks young Bakugo, and young Midoriya rushed in to save him. All Might meets his eyes, only then. His heroic spirit inspired me to step in even though I was out of time. That's when I offered to train him for my quirk. Shouta crosses his arms tightly, fingers digging into his sides. While what Midoriya did was reckless, Shouta couldn't argue that it wasn't also heroic, so he could understand what All Might was thinking, but... Did you take him to a hospital? Huh? Shouta grits his teeth. After he was attacked by the villain, did a medical professional make sure he was okay? The blonde shuffles in his seat more. Well, no, but I was running out of time and he seemed all right when he woke up. Woke up? Shouta is becoming more and more confused at how the hell this man got a hero license. Are you telling me he was unconscious and you didn't take him to the hospital? A small hesitation, then... Yes? Shouta throws his hands up in frustration. For God's sake, All Might. You're a professional. You can't just not get a kid checked out after he's unconscious. Shouta can tell he's getting too agitated, but the emotional stress of the past week is really getting to him, and All Might's negligence is really topping it off. It seems the man didn't have much to say to that because he remained silent. Shouta forces himself to sit back down, trying to rub the headache out of his temple. Shouta continued. I'm going to have to bring that up with Nezu for the safety of our students. You understand? All Might nodded meekly. Shouta felt marginally better that he wasn't putting up a fight. So, what did he ask? What? Shouta gives him a deadpan look. What did Midoriya ask you on the roof? Oh, he asked me if someone quirkless could become a hero. Shouta felt his heart clench. The poor kid was probably just looking for any affirmation of his dream, given that none of his friends nor his mother believed in him. Of course, I told him to go for something a little more realistic before I left. Shota's gut dropped. What? He seethed. All Might didn't seem to register his anger in that question, because he simply clarified, glancing off to the side as if recalling a memory. Yes, it's not realistic for someone quirkless to become a hero. Heroics is based on power, after all, and the quirkless have none. You told a kid his dreams were unrealistic, then left him on a roof. All Might nodded, finally looking into Shota's eyes. He startled back, noticing the fury residing there. Aizawa. All Might. Shota's tone was dark, and he felt cold anger curling in his stomach. Do you know the suicide rates of quirkless kids? All Might spluttered. Suicide? Shouta gave a slow nod and waited for All Might to understand. He saw the moment he did, when he paled considerably. Young Midoriya would never. We don't know that, Shouta interrupted. He might not now, but back then he was a quirkless kid who got suicide-baited and bullied regularly, whose hero just told him he couldn't be a hero. If it were possible, All Might's face paled even more. And I left him on a roof, he exhaled. Shouta nodded. And you left him on a roof. All Might cursed in English under his breath. It's obvious the man cares about Midoriya, but sometimes he can be oblivious and insensitive. Shouta intends to fix that. I need to apologize. Shouta nodded. You do, among other things. The blonde raised a single eyebrow, an almost nauseous look still residing on his face. Shouta continued. You need to tell me first, if you find anything else out about Midoriya's quirk, and then tell the kid. All Might nodded. And I don't want you to have these secret meetings with him anymore. The man reared back. But how will we discuss things anymore? Alone, All Might. I don't want you to have the meetings with Midoriya alone. All Might's brow furrowed. Shouta leaned down on his knees and looked pointedly into All Might's eyes. I can clearly see that you care for the kid, and he cares for you just as much, but you have proven yourself to be unaware of how your words can affect people, especially kids who look up to you. Shouta leaned back. Midoriya is recovering from almost a lifetime of peer abuse due to his previous quirklessness. He doesn't need you to accidentally say something that causes him more harm. The blonde purses his lips, but gives a slow nod. I think I understand, he sighs. I do care for young Midoriya greatly, and don't want to hurt him, intentional or not. Shouta nods tersely, grateful that All Might isn't a complete idiot. Good, he says, standing up and signaling their conversation is over. I'm glad you understand. All Might remained sitting, staring pensively at the floor with a conflicted look in his eyes. For what it's worth, Aizawa. Shouta pauses in the doorway. I am regretful of how I handled things, and I never meant the boy harm. I know, Shouta says, leaving the room and All Might behind. He has plenty more conversations to get to. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 13 of Sometimes All It Takes to See Is to Look. Chapter 14 will be up next. Hope you all are still enjoying this one, and as always, thank you so much for listening.